Okay, so you all obviously read the book, but here's just a summary of the key points that happen. So in the beginning of the book, before the conflict, it's just kind of an introduction to the way of life in Sudan. And one of the big things that also continues throughout the rest of the book is gender roles, which we see in the start of the book. The most obvious example is when Nadi gets married off, and it's like really sad and like a sign of gender discrimination, I would say, because she does try to kill herself 3 times. And also her mother, here's a quote from the book, wonders how could I, a woman, stop the marriage. So like it just kind of shows that even like before the conflict and the war, there's just like a lot of disparity within gender roles. But Pony's mother is like a big influence in just kind of how Pony is independent and different. And she says, I never got an education, but you must. Otherwise, you too will end up on your knees. So she's obviously like a very inspiring role in Pony's life, and like just kind of sets the path for like Pony to just stay strong throughout her life as a refugee and then continue to want to pursue her education. And then we also see some of the points that start the conflict. One of them is the resource curse, which is oil. And the quote, the biggest curse is discovering valuable resources on your own soil, is from Pony's father, and it just kind of like sets up like what the conflict actually is. And so what the conflict is it's a civil war in Sudan, and it's the South against the North, and the South wants to practice Christianity, but the North is trying to spread Sharia law, and the South has the People's Liberation Army. And then, but like, even though the army is for the South, they're still not really like for them, because here's this quote, how are these soldiers our liberators? They would kill us just like the Northerners. So like, even though they're on the South side, it's still like, there's still a lot of conflict, like no matter what. And then here's just a map with the South and the North, so you can see exactly where it's divided. Okay, and then we get to the start of Pony's journey, and then this quote really just stuck out to me as like, just, I can't even imagine what the refugee experience would possibly be like. From this quote, she says, this baby has no head, he must have been hit by a bomb. So that's when she sees, like, she just sees a lot of terrible things, but this quote especially just kind of painted the picture, and I just made me really think, like, how bad it must be. Like, nothing any of us could really imagine. And then she says, I do not count our walk in miles, but rather in days, and soon I lose track of even these. So this just kind of, again, like, shows the true, like, brutality of her journey. And then finally she gets to Kakuma, and even though it is a refugee camp, it's really not much better than her journey. She says Kakuma is as far from salvation as one can imagine. So basically it's like terrible living conditions, and she gets with her foster family, which is intended to help but really doesn't help all that much, because her foster mother just kind of orders her around and is attempting to marry her off so that she can get the bride wealth. And then so basically her foster mother's still just trying to benefit herself, because really everyone is, because at this point it's all just about like how to survive and survival. And just another example of why the camp is so bad, there are 2 trained doctors for 85,000 refugees and a handful of nurses that were mostly untrained. And we also see one of the biggest problems is hunger. For example, we see this when a woman dies in Pony. She says, how I crept over to her and then took the bread out of her hands and put it in my own mouth. So she basically like got bread from a dead woman's hands, because that's how intense the starvation is. And also when Pony visits the UN compound, we see like more aspects of this, because in the compound they just have like a lot of food, and obviously they have the pool and stuff. And I just think that this is like another really big part of the book, because it's just, that part was just especially shocking to me, which we'll talk more about later. And then finally she perseveres and gets to Sister Hannah's compound and eventually America. When she first gets to the compound, she's obviously like happy she got in, but she says, "Inside I feel strange, like someone who's eating food while others are starving in the next room." So like she just like she's happy she made it, but she obviously is still thinking about all the people that she was forced to leave behind in the refugee camp and her family. So it's just kind of hard. She really did have to be independent to get to where she was. And then when she's trying to get to America, it's also hard because the refugees do like block out a lot of the memories, whether intentionally or just because they're too traumatic to even like physically remember. So she has to kind of do that and just the final push of the interview and getting to America, but then she does eventually make it, and her perseverance really made her get through. And now, leading into that, we'll get into the themes of the book.